The biggest challenge is the old habits, to overcome the old habits. And that there's some of these animals in many of the organizations. It's like the tough boy syndrome, how I call it.
Right.
Yeah? So this, I don't need that much sleep. I can do with 5 hours and then work 16 hours and I'm still fine and see how my career. That might have been true at a point in the past, but when we look at our constantly on, super fast and information dense world, that does not work anymore. And this is why I believe we see so many more mental issues. People are just mentally exhausted by being on all the time.
Hello everyone, here we are in the beautiful city of Porto at the HR Congress World Summit final day, and it's my absolute pleasure and privilege to interview Dr. Bernhard Kaumanns, the CEO and founder of Leaders Who Care. Bernhard just finished a fully packed masterclass on a very important critical topics of employee well-being. Bernhard, thank you so much for joining me today for a short chat. Yeah. And you often talk about how your own personal journey to shape the way you look at well-being and change your professional focus, and you decided that this is something you want to dedicate to your professional life in the forthcoming future. So what were some of those pivotal moments that changed your thinking and make you on this path?
I have a background of 30 years working in healthcare, but that was not the pivotal moment, to be honest. Pivotal was for me when I started to lead people. And there I found out what it means to live by example. So when I came to my team stressed out, I could see the reaction from the team. So that was something I hadn't really looked into before in the earlier years of my career. And that was for me the point to take a coaching approach for my own development. And that was my first insight actually into mindfulness. So more than 15 years ago, that brought me into Zen meditation as one technique I still do to today for keeping my personal balance and mindfulness in the daily routines. So that was definitely a pivotal moment, starting as a leader to see the effect that you have on a team.
The topic itself, well-being, together with psychological safety, it's something which sort of gained momentum during the COVID era. Organizations realized it's not a wishy-washy, nice-to-have topic. It's a must-have if you want to have long-term success in organizations. But it does require, just like any change and any transformation, it comes with a set of challenges. What would you say the most typical challenges in organizations when it comes to transformation towards creating a well-being culture?
The biggest challenge is the old habits, to overcome the old habits. And that there's some of these animals in many of the organizations. It's like the tough boy syndrome, how I call it.
Right.
Yeah? So this, I don't need that much sleep. I can do with 5 hours and then work 16 hours and I'm still fine and see how my career. That might have been true at a point in the past, but when we look at our constantly on, super fast and information dense world, that does not work anymore. And this is why I believe we see so many more mental issues. People are just mentally exhausted by being on all the time. So taking the discipline to find your moments where you are off, to recover the brain, this is the recipe to get there. And it's much easier said than done.
Definitely, and particularly in leadership, I've seen many, and I believe still in many organizations, the culture is that we reward somebody who's on 24/7, always available, come early, if it comes to an office environment, leaving late. So even though whatever we say it comes to well-being and balance, it should be, sometimes the behaviors we reward is exactly the opposite.
Yeah.
How do you think we find the balance, and what HR can do and even leaders can do to make sure that actually we practice what we preach?
Yes, yeah. And what we often see is we mix up busyness and effectiveness. And what I mean with this is, the example you gave, always on, first in the office, last out, or first locked in and first locked out in today's hybrid world, and response times even during the night to emails, etc. This is not making people great. This is maybe make them look busy, and some companies still have reward systems that are based on that. But when you look at some people, and Warren Buffett is an example that came to my mind with that, is because he says that the difference between great people and truly great people is truly great people say no to almost everything. And he's an old guy, but very successful. And he's known for very good prioritizing. And I think this is something where we need to, in a way, get back and translate it into our modern world. What does that mean? And for example, I myself, I have a routine that I live up to also for more than 15 years now, to have my offline time. So after a busy day, when I come home, or I stop working at home, around dinner time, my phone goes on flight mode. And it only goes on after my morning routines. So you might say, oh, what is happening if there is some emergency or anything during the night? When you have a good team in place, you can trust that when you work around the sun and you're a global organization, there's someone in your trusted chain who's taking care. And if this is not the case, I think as a leader you have to live up to this example, to show that it's possible to not be 24/7, to be at your best when you come back the next morning, because you're not paid for the time between evening and morning. You're paid for being 100% there during the day.
But sometimes we think we are more important than actually we are. So that,
Yes.
that can be a reason we just fear to switch off. We just fear to let it go.
It's a discipline. And it's also in a company, to change that to a culture, it's necessary that the senior leadership lives up to that as well. So if you have a senior leadership team who's always on, it's hard for an organization to learn that this is unhealthy and you shouldn't do that. You might have here and there a department that is doing better, but to shift an organization to effectiveness, to the place where you put the focus on the right things, you invest the time, the brain power, the creativity, everything that drives the long-term value of an organization at the right place, you need to pause also. And you need to educate people how to pause. And I think living up to doing that by example in the leadership position is extremely important.
It's a very important point you mentioned about discipline, and you mentioned pharmaceuticals. That remind me that if I look at the past year, share price of Eli Lilly or Novo Nordisk, both pharmaceutical companies actually more or less close to 100% growth in their share value because of a pill, which is a diet pill. Everybody knows what it takes to be healthy in terms of diet. You just eat healthy food, you eat less, you exercise more, and yet you just take a pill. It's just much easier than actually doing the stuff. So when it comes to well-being in an organization, how do you develop the discipline towards well-being, and where is the responsibility of individuals, and what's the responsibility of organizations to enable creating this well-being driven culture?
Culture is really the word here. So to ingrain well-being in the culture, it's not just the programs that you need to put in place. It's also the tracking. So it starts with the diagnostic at the beginning. It's a bit like in medicine, yeah? You first have to diagnose before you can put the right treatments in place. And the best treatments are the ones who go to the root cause and not just look at the symptoms, treating the symptoms. So for example, I'm an orthopedic surgeon. Yeah? It's easy to give an injection when someone has back pain, but they probably come back 6 weeks later with the same issue. So treating what is behind that takes longer, but is so much more efficient. Yeah, and that's the same in organizations. Putting the programs in place is fine after the right diagnostics and putting it in the right place, but then also not only take the patience to let these programs roll out, but then measure also the effects over time and see, okay, where do we need to course correct? And the measures is not only how many people do attend the Wellbeing classes, how many people do use the apps, it's all fine tools. But does that really translate into tangible business numbers? It's also important, because we're talking business. So if it doesn't translate into the bottom line with over time a reduction in sick days, for example, or into the top line with a higher engagement of people, you have more ideas, more creative solutions that are coming out of the team. Or attrition is going down, your recommendation level, net promoter score of a company, we heard that, I think, in one of the talks here, is going up. These are the critical measures to put in place and take them seriously in the senior leadership level.
Measurement is very important, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because if we just simply survey people, and it came out in a masterclass as well, we talk about tolerance to stress. And I might have a sense that I'm tolerating stress, but my body probably, maybe deep down, indicates otherwise. And you mentioned a very interesting phrase, the burn on instead of burn out. Can you elaborate on that? What do you mean by burning on, and what's the danger with the burn on approach?
Yes. The danger is to mix up, I am very active and I'm full of energy and I can run, with ignoring the symptoms that your body gives you, the signs and symptoms, but also your surrounding. Burn on in difference to burnout. So burn on are the people who do everything to accomplish what they want to accomplish, including all the energy they can get from all their surrounding. So it's all in good intent, but the risk is, and medically you would call that acute exhaustion depression. So you exhaust yourself to the point where you're going really over the cliff. And in difference to the burnout, which is a stepwise going down, this is a line and then going over the cliff, which is even worse. So these feedback mechanisms from private and business life of you should take a pause. You're always busy, you're always on, and reflecting on that can prevent burn on and create this awareness of people, oh, maybe I should reflect on that and do something different.
Now, we certainly have the attention of corporate HR leaders, corporate business leaders. Now people are paying attention for well-being. It's important, it's critical. It has tangible business benefits. Looking at the crystal ball, what's the future of well-being at work? What would you say, how do you see, what are the key trends are emerging and HR leaders must be aware of?
What I've also shared in my masterclass is there's two mega trends that gives us an opportunity to differentiate good companies from not so good companies. And this mega trend is that we will have a shortness of people coming into the workplace. So it's not the luxury that we had for the last 2-3 decades that to correct the numbers you can let people go and then you rehire them when you want a growth cycle back or something. So it's taking care of people so that they remain with the organization, continue wanting to learn new things within the organization, will be a huge differentiator beside business success. Because without the people, you can't have the business success. AI will not bring you the business results. It will help people on repetitive jobs. So you need even more brain power to go into creativity and go into development of organizations. So this mega trend of less people coming into the workplace and then having a young generation that has grown up with, we want to learn to a point and then we want to change, not staying for long, because they believe they have to constantly adapt to the market because they grew up in a very fast-paced world.
Do you see a generational issue here as well when it comes to well-being? The younger generation, different generations, Gen Z, look at differently well-being than
I'm
our generation.
surprised too, when I talk to Gen Z or also the younger ones of the millennials, how many people have tied into meditation, yoga and other mindfulness practices also in a very young age. So for me, there is an openness. They know there is things they can do about the speed. At the same time, they are of course also the generation who is always on, because everything is happening online. All their social connections, private and business, are happening online. So to give them the opportunity to use this mindfulness openness and bring it also into the workplace, and then having the right leadership style and living up to example, is for me the big differentiator going into the future for the next 5-10 years, to make you an employer that is being recommended out in the market.
So what do you see in terms of trends? Where does well-being sit in organizations? Some organizations, I see, they have appointed a chief well-being officers. Sometimes they sit under HR, sometimes they sit out of HR. So what is the best place, and what's the best way to structure well-being to make sure that it's got a strategic focus in organizations?
That's the right keyword. It needs to be at a strategic place. I think it's not so much mattering where in the organizational chart you put well-being. It's often placed with HR or similar. The more important thing is on the importance level of the company's strategic imperatives. Where does well-being sit there? If it's not on the strategic imperatives, you'll probably not turn the dial. So it needs to be there. So overall company strategic imperative. It's also a good idea to have well-being parameters into the objectives of the C-suite, because we often see that if it's there is programs, investments, and things going after that. And because it's so important to create a workplace where people want to stay longer than 15 months or 18 months, well, what is the normal churn for Gen Z people entering, you need to differentiate yourself from other companies. And this is a wonderful differentiator, because it also pays off on the relationship in the teams. It pays off on the balance between work and non-work time. So that's, for me, one of the big assets that will drive differentiation between great companies and average companies.
And this is something, of course, obviously you at Leaders Who Care can help organizations. Can you tell us a few words about how can you help organizations in making well-being as a strategic priority?
So at Leaders Who Care, we have developed a program that is based, I call it the Healthy Performance Journey. And we look at health on the 4 different levels of health. So holistically looking at health, not just the physical health, but also the social health, the interactions, the mental health, and the spiritual health, which is the place where values and purpose sit. And all this together is the holistic approach that we bring to companies. We like to start with the leadership level, because that is the biggest multiplier in an organization. If leadership takes on the journey first, I think they take the responsibility you have as a leader. You need to go first as a leader, show by example that it's possible, that it's part of the new way of working, and then people will follow. They will try it, they will learn, and then all the different programs, the wide variety of different programs come in. And there I think we have wonderful opportunities, from workshops to technology to coaching, and we use all of that. when we work with companies.
Wonderful. Bernhard, thank you so much for the interview and thank you for joining the summit.
Thank you very much, Mihaly.